This is Justin.
And this is Haley. You're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize the conversations around money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to The Price of Avocado Toast, episode 18. And I think this is going to be the last time I say the numbers because it just sounds weird.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we're so glad to have this conversation with you today.
Well, speaking of first-time listeners, if you are new here, hello, welcome. We are Justin and Haley. We are a married couple that, well, now we are on the good path, but we have done pretty much everything wrong there is to do with money, and so we decided to make this podcast, so welcome along on our journey. We're not here with everything figured out. We're kind of figuring it out on the way, so thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, this podcast holds us accountable and makes us think of things in different ways and try and share some of the knowledge that we've learned that's helped us get out of debt and make better choices. So, and it has worked so far. It's held us accountable, and it's a fun hobby for us to do together that keeps us on the right track.
For sure.
Yeah. So now that you're here, again, if you're a first-time listener, welcome. If you're one of the homies from the beginning, what's up? Good to have you. Happy Wednesday morning. We want to talk about some important modes of life. And it's funny because Haley and I never really thought of these things before getting onto our debt-free journey. And now it's like, well, no, duh. Like, this is like just good budgeting practice. This is just good money habits. But we didn't really ever have good money habits, so these are all new to us. But we wanted to share these ideas with all of you just in case it's something that's coming up for you. There are a couple different scenarios that you might face in your life where you need to really plan out your budget long term or look at things long term. Maybe not quite as month to month as you think. Now, we're huge supporters of a month to month budget. It's absolutely necessary in your life. But there are times when you need to have a long term plan and a long term goal. And we're not really talking like 30-year long-term here. We're talking like maybe a couple months up to a year. Just some important things that come up in life that you really need to start thinking about. So we wanted to share them with you today because we found some success in the last year practicing a couple of these principles. Would you say that's a pretty fair statement, honey?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we've just been really intentional and really mindful, and it's helped us a lot. And so in the interest of trying to hold ourselves accountable to continue to do these things and to give other people advice, we wanted to talk about them. Now, we're going to call them modes. They're kind of modes or seasons in life, times when things show up that we can kind of expect for different seasons of life that we need to be prepared for. But you're going to hear us call them modes. And coincidentally, they all start with the letter S. So it kind of makes it even easier to remember. These are the S modes of life. And that makes me think of that one band. Do you remember S Club 7?
Most definitely not.
Okay. If you're listening to this and you remember S Club 7, DM Haley on Instagram at The Price of Avocado Toast with your favorite S Club 7 song. Because I definitely remember S Club 7, and I just don't want to look like a total fool here. Nonetheless, I digress. The S modes of life. Well, the first S mode that we want to talk to you guys about is squirrel mode. And squirrel mode is one of my personal favorites. I like to think of like little squirrels walking around on the ground, picking up a bunch of acorns. A squirrel doesn't just like take one acorn at a time. No, squirrels are dope. They stash those acorns. They take a bunch and then they run back to their tree and keep all their acorns. And who knows? I might be totally off. If you're a squirrel like scientist, maybe you know better. But in my vision of squirrels, they take all the acorns and they stash them back in the nest. And so I get to talk to you guys about squirrel mode because it's my favorite. Squirrel mode is when you have something coming up in life that you know is going to cost a little bit extra. It's not on your month-to-month budget always, but you're going to put it in your month-to-month budget before it comes up.
And I have to be totally honest here. I didn't even know what the heck squirrel mode was until just recently. When you were talking about it, I'm like, well, what do you mean squirrel mode? Like storm mode? And you were like, no, the animal, a squirrel. And so for me, this always just was budgeting. I don't know. I didn't really realize there was a name. But it makes sense. You're taking as much money as you can, stashing it away, and keeping it for whatever thing that you're saving up for. Meanwhile, you are still paying down debt or you're still doing what you're doing with your budget. but it's basically so you don't end up using a credit card and you're able to cash flow whatever you're planning.
Exactly. It's a way to save up some cash so that you can cash flow some type of expenditure without having to put it on credit or make a bad choice like that. And there's things in life called sinking funds, which are items that go in your budget that are going to come around every single year at the same time that you know you need to plan for. For example, Christmas. You should have a sinking fund for Christmas. Every month you're putting money away, stashing it up so that during the holiday season, you can go ahead and spend that money. And if you don't, celebrate Christmas, that's okay. Obviously, that doesn't need to go into your budget. But that's one that, if you celebrate the Christmas holiday, it's December 25th every year and you're going to save up for it. There's also some thinking funds like your car insurance or maybe your home warranty, many different things like that. What squirrel mode is to me is those larger expenses that come up that may just be a one-time thing. For example, if you had to get your entire windows replaced in your house and you call the company out and you get a quote for maybe $1,000, well, you don't need to replace your windows every single year. You just need to do it one time. And so, one time, over the course of however long you live in the house. So every month, you're going to stash away some of those acorns, those nuts, into a savings account so that once you save up the money, you can tackle that project. So again, if it's your windows, let's say over 10 months, you're going to put $100 into your account and stash it away so that after the end of 10 months, you have $1,000 saved up and you can get the windows taken care of because you've already gotten a quote or an estimate on that.
Another one that I feel like people will be able to relate to is if you are in a wedding.
Yes.
That is not all the time. That's one time event that you need to save money for. I'm just talking from the bridesmaid, maid of honor perspective, but you have your dress, you have your shoes, you have a bridal shower gift, you have a wedding gift, you have the bachelorette party you need to save for, all of these things. And that doesn't even include the transportation and all of whatever else you need to save for. Those things are hugely expensive and you can't just be like, oh, shoot. I have a wedding this October that I totally didn't plan for. I need to put that all on my Chase credit card. I mean, that's what most people end up doing. Mm-hmm. But the responsible thing to do is squirrel mode.
Yeah, it's making sure that present you is taking care of future you. You're doing the things right now that are important so future you isn't stressed. And that was a great point, honey. That was a really good example. Another example that people get caught up with in squirrel mode that I want to make sure people understand is actually not part of squirrel mode is car maintenance. Obviously, you don't have to do things on your car every single year. You don't have to change the tires on your car every single year. But that doesn't mean that that's a squirrel mode thing. That should be a sinking fund of car maintenance as a whole, not just tires. Because things come up on your car otherwise that you might need. For example, I went and got my oil change the other day and did some other stuff. And we had a car maintenance fund. I pulled the cash right from it. I paid in cash. And we just took our car maintenance fund down a little bit. And we're going to keep putting some in each month. So make sure that it's not one of those expenditures that life is going to happen anyways. So you need to plan for. Car stuff happens. Things break down on cars. You're going to need to have money for tires or other issues with your motor or getting your brakes changed, things like that. So it's really important that that's not included in there. These are really just one-time instances where you need to save up ahead.
It could even be a family vacation.
Absolutely. That's a great one.
Like we want to go to... What's the Disneyland in Florida? Disney World.
Disney World.
We want to go to Disney World. That would be hugely expensive for us because it's on the other side of the country. So we'd have to pay for airfare for the family, cross-country, round trip, and then the hotel for however long we're there, plus tickets to the theme park. All of that adds up to some $5,000 trip. But if you plan for 6 months or for a year and you just put money away every month, then it's so doable. It's so doable.
Agreed.
A $5,000 trip every year, that's a massive, elaborate trip.
That is.
But if that's really $500 a month just getting stashed away. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, if you really want to do it, you can totally make something like that happen. But things like this are not necessarily things you're going to see every month, like Justin said, or every year. So if you have a big, giant family reunion in... I don't know, Russia, you can plan for it and go on that trip.
Yeah, exactly. These are things that you're not seeing month to month, and they're really not even once a year. They're like a one time thing that you need to start stashing up for, and that future you, because you're paying attention, knows is coming up. So you've got to kind of backwards plan this. You can't just be like, oh, it's September and I have to take care of this one thing that I knew was coming up. No, you need to say, hey, it's January. In September, this is something I want to do, so I'm going to plan accordingly for that. That's really important in squirrel mode.
So taking this back to us, because we have used all of these modes personally, and so I feel like it's really important to talk about how we have done it. We have used this really for house projects because we live in a house that we know for sure it's not going to be our end game. It's not our forever house. We do plan on selling it and moving out and getting a bigger house eventually. So slowly we've been doing things. We've replaced a few windows. We've replaced the side gate. We got a tree removed. We took down a fence. We just did a retaining wall this summer.
Yeah.
All of these things we had to plan for. But right now our yard looks like absolute trash. And so our current squirrel mode is to save as much money as possible so we can re-landscape our yard. Because right now it looks like absolute trash. It's just a bunch of dead grass and rocks. But we don't necessarily want to waste our time right now during the winter while the weather is bad, spending time, re-landscaping. So we're going to wait until the spring. So right now we are planning for that big event.
Yeah, and so we have a couple months to save things up and to make sure that once the spring comes around, we can have some lovely landscape. So that is squirrel mode. And I think that a lot of you guys are probably listening to this and you can already identify things in your life that fall into squirrel mode. And if you're unsure if they fall into squirrel mode or if they fall into just your normal sinking funds, reach out to us. We can help you kind of diagnose a little bit more whether it's a sinking fund that should be in your budget month to month or if it is squirrel mode and you need to save up for a one-time thing. So now that you guys have heard about squirrel mode, Haley's going to explain to you the really exciting mode. This is the fun mode.
This is stork mode. So this is planning for a baby. Family planning. Whether you planned and wanted your pregnancy or if it is an unexpected surprise. Regardless, when you find out that you are expecting a baby, you need to start saving money. And so I just kind of want to go over some of the things you want to save money for because I found that when we were pregnant with Calliope, as first-time parents, we just really didn't know what to expect. So I did a lot of research online of the expenses, but everything kind of just happened. And I mean, yeah, we did plan, but we definitely could have done a better job planning beforehand.
Yeah, this was also right at the start of our ideas of becoming debt-free. Like, we had decided that this was going to for sure be the path for us a month before she was born. We had, dabbled in it for, 5 months, but we really got serious a month before she was born. So we just weren't totally ready for this. And luckily, we made it through. But I think it's really important for parents to be aware of as the baby starts to come along.
Because you can really run into some significant expenses if you are not prepared for them. So basically, the pre-baby expenses that you need to prepare for, everything kind of comes down to your insurance and what your health insurance covers and what your deductible is. But the pre-baby expenses include checkups. My insurance had free prenatal care completely, but some of them you have to pay co-pays every single time you go in. And I went in every 2 weeks. So you have checkups, ultrasounds, lab works, prenatal vitamins, maternity wardrobe, and that I spent a lot of money on.
Yeah, we went out that one day, and in one day, we spent $600 getting
Dave Ramsey.
maternity clothes for you. Although, even if we had practiced Dave's principles, if we had a sinking fund for clothing set up, I would have still done this because it was really important to me that you were comfortable, that you still felt beautiful, that you had clothes that didn't, make you have to constantly go to the bathroom because they were hugging you in places you didn't want. You could still be mobile as best possible. That was really important to me. So I'm not frustrated at spending that much money. I've told you that since day one. I think it's a great spend.
Well, you are the real MVP and the best husband ever, so thank you. But that $600 haul was
It
in
was
the
still a
beginning.
lot.
It was in the beginning of my pregnancy. It was a lot of money, and then come towards the end of my pregnancy, I needed some bigger pants because the ones that I got in the beginnings didn't fit. So, I mean, borrowing stuff from people might be your best bet because you might grow out of even your maternity clothes. I totally did that.
Yeah, a lot of people would be surprised to know that women grow when they're growing a baby.
Significantly. Also, pre-baby, you want to get important baby gear. You don't need to get everything, but car seats, strollers, all of that. Have a shower. That's really the answer. But
Have a baby shower.
a baby shower,
Yeah.
and a shower.
Yeah.
You definitely need to clean yourself too. Okay, so the biggest thing is delivery expenses. And again, this completely depends on your health insurance and your deductible. You need to know your out-of-pocket expense per person and per family for the entire year. So for example, if your insurance is $3,000 max out of pocket per person, but $6,000 max out of pocket per family, you might be able to do that math for your baby delivery. In the worst case scenario, you might be out $6,000 because they can take $3,000 and bill the mom and then roll over the other remaining on the newborn baby and charge the baby for just being alive.
Yeah.
Here's your first bill.
Yeah, welcome to the world, kid.
So I did a little research, and this is frightening, but this is actually on the Dave Ramsey website.
Oh, cool.
And according to the Healthcare Cost Institute, this is the United States averages for, out-of-pocket expenses. The average for the United States is $13,811.
Wow.
Out of pocket. That's the bill from the hospital. That's it.
Wow.
Yikes.
Yay.
Okay, so this varies state to state. New York has the highest. Take a guess.
Oh, having a baby in New York? Jeez. It's probably 25,000.
Okay, not that high.
Okay.
17,556.
Wow.
And Alabama has the lowest of 7,507. So you need to plan for the labor and delivery costs because you never really know what you're going to be facing afterwards. You don't want to be stuck with a $12,000 bill.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I want to touch on is unpaid time off.
Yeah.
So that's what we actually did plan and pay for.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know your maternity leave time, what time is paid, what time is disability, how that's going to fluctuate. For example, we're teachers, so we don't get state disability, but I did have a private disability insurance, so I did get disability separate to supplement my income deductions. But it really varies for what career you have and the benefits for each job. I think state to state, it will vary also. So you really need to look into it. How much time do you have off? How much is paid? And what percentage is paid? Because they might say, oh, you get 6 weeks paid maternity leave, but only at 25%.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of money. So you need to plan for the rest of that time. Also, after your 6 to 8 weeks off, for most of us, that's not enough time.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to take extra time after that? If so, it might be completely unpaid or partial paycheck. So you really need to plan for that. And that was the hardest thing for us, really trying to figure out how much money are we even going to be making. And we didn't even know until we got into the situation.
Yeah, till that first paycheck came.
Which was really frustrating. I really wish that the systems were more clear
More transparent, yeah.
Yeah, with human resources and like onboarding. This is just a huge issue in the United States with family planning. But I actually had a teacher friend reach out recently. She's expecting a baby, and she was wondering about how did it go? What did you get paid? And all of that. And I'm like, oh boy, I have information for you, but this is just from my experience from my specific school district.
Yeah.
So I can give anyone advice on where to look, but if you are an accountant, you're looking at something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it varies district to district, obviously with teachers, and it varies with different careers and different states and all of that good stuff. And something that I want to kind of piggyback on this is, those are high numbers, and we're not expecting people to go out and save $1,000 a month when they're, trying to pay off debt for their child to come along. We get it. That's not really feasible. So you need to start The moment you think that you're going to begin family planning, you need to start stashing a little bit away each month to take care of some things. And you also need to put your pride aside a little bit. Try and find some good deals on the internet. We found some great stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
There's incredible mom groups out there and dad groups out there who are just trying to take care of the next group of parents coming along and get rid of high quality things that they don't need anymore at a really low price. So we got the crib, the changing table, right? The crib and the changing table for like $150 combined.
I think it
something
was
that.
like $250, but they are Pottery Barn really
Yeah,
nice
250
quality.
Pottery Barn stuff, like beautiful stuff, not even dents or scratches or anything. Like it was really nice, and it still works great.
I mean, we got everything on Facebook Marketplace. We got the crib, the changing table. We got
The bouncer
the
stuff.
swing.
Mhm.
We got the glider.
Yeah.
The
The only thing we didn't
the
get on there.
dock-a-tot.
Oh yeah,
The
the
bassinet.
Bassinet.
Literally everything that was really big and expensive.
The only thing we didn't get on there was the stroller
The
and
yeah.
the car seat.
And a stroller and a car seat. I don't really ever recommend getting a used car seat. That's not the safest thing to do. But if you're really pinching pennies, you can if you trust the person that you're buying it off of.
Yeah.
You just need to make sure that it was never in an accident. But, however, I just wanted a new car seat and a stroller so we could reuse it for our babies. But now I'm realizing when we have more kids, we're going to need a new stroller anyway.
Yeah. So
whatever.
Great. But, we're not expecting people to go out and save up $1,000 right away so that they can pay off some hospital bill. Like, that's maybe not as realistic in your situation as possible. And our wedding officiant, who's kind of like my mentor in life, he also gave us premarital counseling. He chatted with us and was like, hey, if you're waiting until you have the finances to have a baby, then you're always going to be waiting. Because, it's you can always justify needing to save more. I can say, well, what if the hospital bill's more? Or I want to provide my child with this more or that more. Or I'm going to save up college before they get here. And it's like, hey, take a breath. You'll figure it out. Parents do. That's a wonderful trait of parents is they figure it out when they need to. And just take actionable steps to put yourself in a better situation. You don't need to save up $30,000 to have a baby.
No.
You just need to take care of some things and check your insurance, see what you can do with that, and things will probably turn out okay.
And you can do payment plans.
Yeah.
When you get your bill.
Exactly.
And if they give you some excruciating number, most of the time you can say, hey, dude, this is ridiculous. I can't afford it. And then they will negotiate with you and kind of like cut it in half or something.
Yeah, that might be an option.
Dave Ramsey talks about that a lot.
And either way, having a baby is the coolest blessing in the world. If you're ready to start your family and you guys are in a healthy space to do it, don't wait. Have that baby. Try your best, whatever you can do. It's really hard. It's really hard for some families to have babies. And I don't want people to wait because of money. That's just unfortunate. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know. That's a whole other topic.
It totally is. But I also want to go back to the insurance. There are a couple things you can do with your insurance. For example, we didn't have a hospital bill when we had our baby. And that's because we have a $0 deductible or zero out of pocket or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's really expensive. Like we pay for the highest insurance option that's available. Yeah. And that trade-off is we pay more monthly up front every single month. And then we pay nothing later for giant things. And while we are paying off debt and while we are figuring things out, we don't have all this extra cash. So it's a little easier for us to just stash it away monthly or in the insurance payment monthly than to put it into a specific fund for things, because I feel like we are in the mindset of like every extra penny needs to go towards the debt that we have right now. So that's one of the choices that we made. And that's a choice that you could make too. I'm not really going to advocate either way. It worked well for us. I do know that it helps me stay calm knowing that if our family got like, I always think the most expensive thing is like if you all got in a car crash and everyone's broken, right? We wouldn't have to pay anything. Yeah. For all of us staying in the hospital and for brain surgeries or whatever, nothing, we would have $0 owed. Yeah. And so that gives me a lot of assurance knowing, okay, no matter what, yeah, we pay a hell of a lot of money every single month for the insurance, but we're not going to be stuck with a huge medical bill. So it really is a give and take with what you want to do.
Yeah.
how you want to budget that out.
I agree. All right, so you guys have heard squirrel mode and you've heard stork mode, like the bird, the stork, the famous baby delivery system. And the final one we want to talk about is one that we've talked about already on the podcast when we spoke about planning for pandemics. But we just want to reiterate storm mode. Life has its seasons where it just feels like everything is coming at you at once. Everything that's bad that can happen is happening, and it can get really hard. So, storm mode is when things get bad and you need to start saving up some cash for whatever reason, and you need to save it up ASAP. We're talking company layoffs. We're talking about global pandemics where our economy gets shut down for some reason. We're talking about, your spouse gets diagnosed with some type of illness where they're going to be out of work for a little bit. We're talking about, kid has some kind of traumatic thing where you got to stay home and work with them at home. Heaven forbid those things happen, but unfortunately they do. And you've got to be ready to hit the pause button on the conveyor belt in the factory of life and you need to start repairing the motors on those conveyor belts. And that's what storm mode is. It's stacking all extra dollars that you can and keeping them safe in the event that things pop up. For example, let's say your spouse did lose their job. Well, you're going to go into storm mode. You're going to cut back on spending as much possible. You're going to save up those dollar bills because you never know how quick your spouse is going to be able to get that job or how much income they're going to get back to when they get that next job. So you start saving up a little bit until life returns back to a semi-normal state. That may be a month, that may be 3 months, who knows. And obviously there's benefits to being out of debt and benefits to having an emergency fund in life, but we're not all at that space, and it's naive to think that. So you've got to know how to tackle things when they arrive in storm mode. Again, pause the conveyor belt of life and start fixing the machines in the factory so that you can get back on the right track.
I love that. Pausing the conveyor belt. What another way to think about that is that you are stopping all payments on debt.
Mm-hmm.
Like completely stop, just do minimums, and then from there every single extra penny just goes towards your fund for saving up for when you need it.
Yeah, and you're also cutting back your spending. This is the time when we're not going out to restaurants. We're cooking at home every single night. We're not doing those extra things that maybe you like to do as a family or as a couple or as a single person. You're not buying those extra things on Amazon that you don't need. You're not doing the clothes shopping. You're not doing the massages. You're not doing the Starbucks. You're not doing the gas station donuts and coffee. I mean, you are shutting things down and you are hoarding every single little bit. This is not like squirrel mode where you're stashing for a plan. This is you are stashing to make sure you can weather this storm. You can make it through this hurricane of life and come out okay on the other side.
And we all know what this feels like because we're living it right now.
We all know it.
And even if you personally are not going through a job loss or you didn't go through a job loss with COVID, you know people who did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think of your side job, which is your side job. It's not your career. And for so many restaurant employees, this is their career.
Yeah.
But in March, when the restaurant closed, it was closed for a while. I think you opened up back in June, part-time, and you had a couple shifts a week.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are rolling into November, and you still only have one shift a week.
Yeah.
Thankfully for our situation, that just is your side job. But everyone else is in the same situation where they're still only getting a few shifts a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you might be able to get a job after you lose the job, but it might not be the same amount of money, and it might take you some time to really build up that income again. So you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, you really got to be diligent and intentional in recognizing it's a season of life. It's not going to be forever, but in this season of life, I will act a certain way to make sure that I get through this. Mm-hmm. Storm mode is so difficult too, because I think of the three, it's the most emotionally taxing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shouldn't speak as that because I haven't given birth myself, and so I know that parents going through the birthing process obviously have emotions, but it's just so taxing on your spirit when you're going through storm mode. And it really does feel, I'm sure, like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And it can be difficult. It just, everything feels like a weight. And so if you can lighten that burden a little bit with having your finances in place, that'll really help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you guys go.
That's why we talk about paying down debt. That's why we are trying to pay down debt.
Mm-hmm.
Because after we have no debt, then we will have an emergency fund of probably about 4 months. And then from there, we will have the money, if there were a real emergency, to use that cash in the emergency fund. But when you don't have that, you really need to have a plan B.
Yeah, absolutely. So there it is, you guys, the 3 S modes of life. Squirrel mode, which is saving for a one-time thing that you know you got to get taken care of, like a home expense or something like that. You got stork mode, which is when you got a baby, that little bundle of joy on the way, and you want to save up for all the joys of early parenting. And then you've got storm mode, which is when the season of life is difficult and you have got to hunker down and batten the hatches and get ready to survive the storm. Yeah, there's your 3 S modes of life. So we're glad we were able to share that with you guys. I want you to do 2 things. The first one is please DM Haley on Instagram if you remember an S Club 7 song. That's really important to me. I think that that's huge, and I can't think of any right now, and I don't want to look them up because I want to see if our listeners are like, yeah, S Club 7, duh, I know them. Because that's totally a millennial thing, too.
No one's going to know who that is.
Okay. Well, if you guys do, shout out to you. But the second thing is, Haley and I were chatting about what we want to talk about for next week. And what I was thinking this week, and I've had it kind of just a week where in the back of my mind, all I've thought about is like tremendous giving. And I've been hooked on watching the TV show Undercover Boss.
Yeah.
And I realized it's because right at the end, like when they're able to do this giving for people that are in hard spots, it's like, that's what I want out of life. It's just the ability to give so tremendously that it is life-changing. So what we want to do is we want to have an episode next week focused on all of the awesome moments of giving and generosity that you guys have seen in your lives. We want to share the generosity stories that you guys have. The plan that we follow is the Ramsey plan, and I love even when he does the episodes of, wild generosity and people telling these stories. And so we want to hear your stories, and we want to share them on the next episodes. The next episode is going to be all about generosity. You can tell us what you would do if you had all the money in the world. What would you give it to? Who would you support? We'll tell you Haley's big plan for what she wants to do if we ever get rich. You guys are going to be blown away just how incredible my wife is. She's a rock star, and I'm lucky to have you. So DM us your generosity or your giving dreams, your moments of generosity, the things that have happened to you, the things that you've done for others, whatever it may be. We want to share them next week as we get closer into the generosity season of the holidays.
That's going to be such a sweet, warm episode for our hearts.
That's a feel-good episode.
Yes. Feel-good episode. Also, guys, I just want to thank you so much for following along on our journey. Like I said, we're not here on display. Like, look at us. We've got life figured out. We are here doing it. And we're doing it with you. And that is so cool. So we appreciate the support. This week, the podcast went over 5,000 downloads, which I'm not here trying to just count all the downloads every day, but it's just a really cool feeling knowing that 5,000 times people have listened to us.
Yeah.
Not 5,000 people, but, people have come back to listen, and they've listened to our stories, and I just really appreciate all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited for, when the whole pandemic stuff lifts and, people can go out and hug people again and stuff, because there's a couple friends of ours who I know have listened and supported us, and I really want to hug them. And if you're a listener that's not in the North Bay of California, then I'm virtually hugging you as well, because you're an awesome rock star, and we appreciate you.
Yeah. We can't hug people where we live right now. We are in a very bad purple zone in California.
Yeah, so you guys don't want to hug us. So
hugging is completely off limits.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for following along. It just really means a lot to us, and it keeps us motivated. It keeps us in check, so we continue to work really hard.
Absolutely.
The podcast, The Price of Avocado Toast, has been listened to in 30 countries. And still, to date, it is currently, what date? What's the date?
October 27th.
October 27th, and we still don't have listens in Wyoming. So my brother really needs to get it together.
Yes. Wow, we got to confront some family issues there. Anyways, that's going to be it for this episode of The Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so glad to have this conversation with you guys today, and we're just so proud to be a part of this community with you all. As always, happy budgeting.
You got this, Toasties. Thank you for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend. We'd love to continue building our listening community.
If you're interested in speaking more with a financial coach, hit up our coach Ryan at MeFinanciallyFree on Instagram. Use the promo code HELP50 in the consultation notes section to receive 50% off.